For as much as I've played Demon Souls, around a dozen-ish playthroughs, I've never used what is one of the most popular weapons in the game, the Dragon Bone Smasher. It doesn't change today since the weapon in this mod, as well as its usage, is different, but I'll be using a variant of it at least. Mirka, a Dark Souls modder, ported this weapon from Demon Souls into Dark Souls Remastered. The Bandit class is given the weapon right at the beginning of the game, and its stats are modified to be able to use the weapon from the start, from 14 strength to 20, so you can two-hand the Smasher with its 30 strength requirement. The moveset is pretty similar to Demon Souls, the R1 and R2 combos being exactly the same, the running and backstab attack being the moving slash, and the roll attack being the downward stab. The only difference in the moveset is the jump attack, since Demon Souls doesn't have a jump attack, and the critical since the weapon doesn't have a critical attack in the mod. No backstabs, riposts, or plunging attack criticals, which is different from its Demon Souls variant. The only other differences are not requiring colorless Demon Souls to upgrade, since those don't exist in Dark Souls, obviously, instead only needing 10,000 souls per level, and not giving the extra fire resistance like it does in Demon Souls, at least not in the version of the mod that I'm playing. If that gets changed in the future, that will likely be on the Nexus page, linked in the description. The requirements, scaling, and weight are ripped straight out of Demon Souls 2. With that out of the way, and the Asylum Demon obliterated in only 3 hits, we can start working our way towards upgrading it and getting to the actual requirements and such. We're mid-rolling, even completely naked, since it weighs 20 units, and it's going to take quite a few levels to be able to fast roll with it, so the first order of business is to collect Havel's Ring, along with some souls along the way. I happened to get the Black Knight Halberd drop, which is unfortunate since I can't really use that in this playthrough, but killing it is what taught me I can't riposte with it. Havel just kinda confirmed that. The Havel fight is a little harder without riposting, but the weapon is just fast enough to be able to use an R1 or rolling attack with the right spacing and still get out unscathed, and with the damage we're putting out, Havel is barely an obstacle. At this point, I wasn't really sure what the weapon would upgrade with, so I did kill the Titanite Demon just in case, and for a few extra souls. Titanite demons, or prowling demons, I guess, are extremely easy to deal with if you just stand behind the arm that doesn't hold their weapon, especially when they die in only 6 hits. With the souls from Havel, the Black Knight and Prowling Demon, and the Soul of a Proud Knight, I can upgrade the Smasher exactly 1 time, which should be slightly helpful. Since I can't wear armor yet, the Wolf Ring will be invaluable for the early game, especially the lower Berg, and since I'm here, I might as well go fight the Butterfly for another level on the weapon really quick. Blocking with a massive slab of metal doesn't really prevent that much damage, but even with as terrible as I am at dodging the Butterfly, that didn't end up being much of an issue. I could have one-cycled it if I had used more heavy attacks, though the phase 2 attacks I had to deal with weren't too much of an issue. The laser is always simple, just to roll through it. The explosion when it flies over the bridge, on the other hand, took me forever to learn how to reliably dodge. The easiest way is to back off a bit, then sprint under the Butterfly before the projectile lands, since she'll fire it at you rather than directly under her. It's the Butterfly though, she's never really a hard boss, and that gets us another upgrade on the weapon. Since I'll need 50,000 souls to upgrade the Bone Smasher all the way to max, on top of a lot of levels to be able to use it while wearing armor, I think getting the Silver Serpent Ring is a good idea. The catacombs are pretty easy, even at such a low level, if you just drop here, then down here, and sprint into Pinwheel's arena. Pinwheel can be hard if you're doing really low damage, but, well, we're not. They go down in only 4 hits, barely getting the chance to attack at all. The mask I got was the Mask of the Father, which is actually really useful in this instance since the weapon is so heavy. The Silver Serpent Ring is just past the fog wall, then on the opposite side of the hole you'd normally go down to progress. From there, you drop down past the item there and follow a narrow bridge to grab the ring. The homeward bone we got from Pinwheel takes me back out of Firelink with enough souls for 2 more upgrades and a ring that'll make the rest of the game a lot easier. The gargoyles will drop just enough souls to max out our weapon so we don't have to worry about that anymore. It's honestly really nice to not have to worry about upgrade materials, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was changed in the future to need Demon Titanite instead. Anyway, 2 strong attacks, or 3 attacks if one of them isn't in R2, takes out each gargoyle, meaning it's really not much of a fight. The extra souls from the Silver Serpent Ring, along with a few more from the Channeler, let me get my strength up to 27, the soft cap while two-handing. I also maxed out the Bone Smasher, meaning our damage is nearing as high as it'll get, though I do want to get my strength to 30 so I can one-hand the weapon if I decide I want to do that at some point. Power Within will also increase our damage a bit, and there's not really any reason to not pick that up later. Real quick, just for fun, I think the Stray Demon will be pretty easy, and the extra 24,000 souls will definitely be useful. That is, assuming I can make it past the Torch Hollows. I succeeded eventually. Each attack does a good chunk of damage to the stray demon, and it just didn't attack for a while, letting me easily get it down to half health, and a few more attacks from there finished it off. I did die to the Black Knight because I thought an attack would stagger it with how big the thing is. My hubris was punished, but I came back and killed it on my second attempt. Those souls get me to 30 strength and 24 endurance, meaning I can actually wear pants. Truly a monumental moment in this run. Unfortunate for some of you, but at least a little helpful for me. Anyway, the Black Knight in the Burg is a lot less of an issue than the one in the Asylum, going down in a single hit. Despite the mod not including a plunging attack critical animation, meaning you can't land on the Taurus demon's head and do a special little stab animation, I was still able to one-shot it with a plunging attack. The main reason I wanted to go through the Taurus demon though, was reaching the lower Burg a little easier than running back through the parish since I wanted to fight all the bosses anyway. That means running past the Drake, past the boar and the hollows around it, then grabbing the basement key and running back to the lower Burg entrance. The Drake won't attack you from this side once you rest at the Sunlight Altar bonfire. The lower Burg is the main reason I grabbed the wolf ring, since it kinda trivializes everything down here. The first couple dogs can be lured into the fire, and one dog on its own isn't really an issue despite the speed of our weapon. The thieves in the first two doors can be killed through the door just like normal, and one thief on its own also isn't an issue. The swing radius is wide enough to take the 3-on-1 with the second set of thieves to a 1-on-1 pretty quick. I'm just not good at the video game and immediately got backstabbed. Despite my apparent skill issue, the Capra demon isn't much of a boss with the wolf ring, which makes avoiding the dogs incredibly easy. From there, since I have a maxed out weapon with good scaling, it becomes a fight with a very normal enemy that we'll fight more of in the demon ruins anyway. With that, we can access the depths, where all I really want to do is free Laurentius and go straight to the boss. It's relatively easy to just drop straight down to Laurentius, and from there you can drop behind the butcher's table and slide down this slope on the left to get to the gaping dragon pretty quickly. The movement on the R2 makes it really hard to hit the tiny head of the gaping dragon, so the R1 is a bit better in this instance. Even when you don't hit the head though, the damage is nothing to scoff at. The first charge let me take out well over half its health, and from there, a few more hits was all it took to take down the dragon. Despite my earlier hubris failing miserably, I haven't learned my lesson at all. Instead of resting in Blighttown and safely making my way down, I'm going to attempt to sprint straight to Power Within and use a bone to go straight back to Firelink Shrine so I can use Power Within for Quelaag. In preparation, I made sure to re-equip the wolf ring. That'll help a lot with the fire dogs. The quickest way to Power Within is jumping down to the Iaito, running past the bonfire, past the fire dogs, then jumping onto this ledge. From there, drop down to the ladder, climb up it, and go past a couple ghouls, and take out the wall hugger from behind. Power Within is free to grab from there, and I can just bone back to Firelink, grab the Pyromancy Flame from Laurentius, and attune Power Within. Getting back down into Blighttown, and to Quelaag this time, is far easier from Firelink. It's literally just 2 elevator rides as opposed to an entire level. Shockingly, my hubris wasn't punished there, but I like to think my next death was karma for that. I ran into Quelaag's arena, ran under her, attacked twice, and died to her shaking her butt. This attack is so rare that I genuinely didn't even consider the fact that it could happen. Once I got back though, she died in only 5 slightly more cautious attacks, so it wasn't exactly a difficult fight. Since we're here, I went ahead and fought Ceaseless, who nearly died in 2 R2 combos. Once I got back up to Firelink, I had to fight Vince, Nico, and Rhea because I killed Petrus earlier and forgot to mention it. They died really quickly, but the fight was funny. Sens wasn't particularly special in this run. The couple serpents I fought died in a hit or two, and since I'm not mid-rolling, getting past the traps wasn't an issue. I didn't use Power Within for the golem since I figured it would fall over too quickly for that to matter. If I had, it would have fallen over in 2 hits, but instead here it was 3. It didn't fall off the ledge, but a few R2s took it out before it could stand back up. I used the boss souls I had, and the souls from the golem itself, to get 36 endurance and actually wear a little bit of armor. In this case, the gold hem set, but otherwise Anor Londo also wasn't really special. On the way down to Gwyndolin, I killed the second gargoyle, but it wasn't much of a fight. Gwyndolin himself, with help from Power Within, died in a single R2 combo, making this one of the few one-cycle Gwyndolin fights I've ever done. The Painted World was a bit more interesting than the last 2 levels, only because I took a slightly different route from what I normally do. There's a way to drop off this bridge and run under the dragon, skipping the entirety of the Painted World, but a slightly more popular way to skip the level is by fighting the dragon, which is what I did here. It did die very quickly, but it's rare I fight it at all. From there, you can jump attack the bottom half of the dragon, which resets its animation, and we can fight Priscilla. One running attack makes her visible, since breaking her poise is what makes her visible again, and 2 more take her down completely, so that sure was a boss fight. If you use the homeward bone you got from leaving the Painted World, it will teleport you to the first bonfire in Londo, no matter what, even if you don't rest in the Painted World. Leaving will set your active bonfire to the beginning of Londo. That means if the elevator is all the way down, where you can't reach it from the main bridge, you'll have to run through the rafters again, so be mindful of that and just run to Gwyndolин's bonfire instead. Anyway, our next boss, after obliterating this archer instantly, is Ornstein and Smo. Ornstein was a little jumpy for the 15-ish seconds he was alive for. 3 hits takes us into phase 2, and another 6 takes down Smo completely. Learning to actually land hits with this weapon is a little weird. It's slower than most weapons in Dark Souls, but not all of them, so the speed works with this game. I think the thing that gets me is the weird range on some of the attacks. The second attack in the R1 combo barely reaches in front of you. The second hit on the R2 combo has the same issue, the running attack has very little range, and the R2 moves you really far forward, making spacing very different from most weapons in the game. It was about this point in the game where I started getting better at landing most of those hits, but it took a long time to get used to. On the exact opposite side of that coin though, the moveset was perfect for the Hydra. The R2 being a big overhead swing made hitting the giant heads super easy since it would be impossible to land a follow-up regardless. The wide sweep on the R1 falls under the same category. The golem did completely dodge the second hit in my R2 combo, proving my prior point, but it still went down easily. The huge hitbox on the weapon also made Sif quite easy to hit every time I press a button, regardless of how well I was at aiming that swing. She became a cycle of dodging, pressing R1, and repeating. She did get a little jumpy by the end of the fight, but nothing more than usual, and she went down in a mere 5 hits. Normally, by this point, I'd have already drained New Londo for the very large ember, so it is kind of weird to have to do it now, but it's also just New Londo. If you haven't seen me do this before, the easiest way to get through the ghost house, the only remotely difficult part of this level, is by running past it, up the stairs at the back, past the rare ring of sacrifice, dropping down, running inside, and straight up the ladder. This distracts all the ghosts so you can easily get to the top of the ladder without being knocked down. There was no reason for me to, but I killed Ingrid because it was funny. From there, the way to the Four Kings is open, and we can get straight on to the fight. Actually, fight might be the wrong word. The first one immediately opened with a homing magic, which was annoying, but this crime was not unpunished, going down in only 4 hits. The second took the same number of hits, but somehow went by faster. By then, the third had more health than the overall health bar, so it was closer to a 2.5 Kings fight. The 4 Kings aren't exactly difficult to get attacks in with at the worst of times, though. Next up is Nito, and since we've already gone through Pinwheel, we can skip right down to the tomb. I grabbed the skull lantern from the pit Patches kicks you into, not because I actually want to use it to navigate the tomb, but because I want to trade it with Snuggly. If we bring it back to the asylum and drop it in the nest, when we reload the area we'll be given the Ring of Fog. If you also grab the Slumbering Dragon Crest Ring from Sen's Fortress, done by dropping off the staircase the boulders roll down around here and going through this side, Nito gets far easier. I have to be naked for this fight to fast roll, but that doesn't really matter with how much easier this gets. If you have both rings equipped, the skeletons will not see and will not attack you as long as you don't get too close to them. It's not super precise or anything either, aside from Nito's funky grab hitbox. This fight went about as smooth as possible, defeating the Lord of Death before he even had the chance to use a real attack. You can even quickly swap to the Silver Serpent Ring after beating a boss to still get the soul bonus. Using a big weapon like this trivializes the boars every time, and being able to one-shot the Crystal Hollows makes the first room of the Duke's Archives a lot easier than with most stray swords, despite the slow speed of the weapon. The Crystal Golem even goes down to a single hit. The rare ring of sacrifice from the top of the ghost house lets us not worry about being cursed at all, and we get to see the Pasakas. Unfortunately, no backstabbing today since the mod doesn't add one, but I will still let one pin it. Grab me for good luck. From there, once you get back to the archives proper, you can just run to the opposite room, twist the staircase, run up the stairs, drop onto the other staircase, twist it, and go down, and you're at the longest hallway in the game, the Crystal Caves. I'm sure a clam in the Seath fight wouldn't have been much of an issue, but I took them all out beforehand regardless because it was funny. A quick power within cast before breaking the crystal lets us run in and kill Seath with the only break in attacks coming from letting our stamina restore. The Capra demons down in the demon ruins have less health than the boss demon, meaning the one I fought went down in only 2 hits, but it really doesn't make that much of a difference. The worm takes the same number of hits, but unfortunately the Fire Sage takes a couple more. The same strategy as the Stray applies here, but the Fire Sage jumps around a lot more often. It can be a little annoying to land the hits you need to, but I'd be lying if I said it was hard. The most reliable way to fight the Centipede demon is standing in this corner, waiting for it to use its punch, then running in and cutting off the arm. From there, you just equip the ring, and wow, that's a lot of damage. I think that might be one of, if not straight up, the fastest Centipede Demon fight I've ever had. Anyway, the Bed of Chaos doesn't change regardless of what weapon you use, so this should be pretty easy. Actually, the range of the weapon does mean you need to break fewer branches while getting to the node thingies on either side. Getting to the middle is super easy too, just wait for the scythe stabs or roll through the fingers. You know, this boss is easy when you know what you're doing, but hubris does make it a little bit harder sometimes. When I got to the DLC, I just kind of stood there for a bit, because during my stream the day I recorded this run, I got 200 souls randomly twice, and I wanted to test that out. I only got one of the 200 souls drops. I assume it's because of a couple of the scarecrow gardener things, or whatever they're called, spawning out of bounds, but I have no idea where or why it takes so long to get the souls. Anyway, aside from getting hit by a tail swipe, this was an incredibly fast Tinctuary Guardian fight. 4 hits is nothing, which is really unfortunate because I really love this fight. Granted, though, 4 hits is pretty funny. Artorias' weird jump attack hitbox ended up hitting me as his first attack, and I wasn't aggressive enough to stop the buff because I forgot it was health-based and wasn't ready for it to happen so quickly, but otherwise this was an insanely fast Artorias fight. This weapon is a ton of fun, and I've been enjoying this run a lot. Granted, this isn't the only weapon that can destroy bosses like this. The Demon Great Axe comes to mind. It's not like this is a particularly overpowered weapon, and I am using Power Within, but the big damage is pretty easy to get with this thing and really funny. Not much stands in the way of fighting Manus. The hardest part of the DLC didn't stand a chance against a massive slab of metal, and I even fought the Chained Prisoner because I was feeling cocky. A jump attack does over 800 damage to Manus. Most weapons will only do around 400. Even an R1 does almost 600. I think Manus knew what was going on though, since he started spamming the Dark Ring and Storm attacks over and over near the end of the fight, 2 of his most annoying attacks to dodge. I ended up getting greedy and got hit by his combo, but only needing to level up strength, health, and stamina throughout the run, and switching to the Ring of Favor and Protection at this point because I thought the health bar was funny made that a non-issue completely. Remember when we used the jump attack to reset the animation for the dragon butt in the Painted World? Well, we can make it look like Dusk is awake by doing the same thing. So we can unequip our weapon. Oops. Wait, I forgot Kalameet with the Dragon Bone Smasher? This is an opportunity I'm not gonna miss. Hold on, let me get back to the fight real quick. Okay, that's better. I smashed his bones. With the weapon not having a riposte, I actually had to fight Gwyn somewhat normally. Actually, I decided to do it entirely without parrying because I thought it would be more fun that way. Normally, this is a genuinely really hard fight if you do it that way, but Gwyn has very little poise for a final boss, which makes it kind of funny. It wasn't an easy fight, since I just don't know his combos very well for how little I fight him, but I did still win on what was technically my first try. I wasn't planning on doing a run with any modded weapons anytime soon, but this was really fun, and I'm glad I did. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I love you all. And during this member read, if I mispronounce your name, please comment or message me on Discord to correct me, or if you want me to call you something different. Anyway, I would especially like to thank Matthias Morera, Orium, Franco, Astral Lily, Nevin, the Swedish manga artist, Melina Gothgirl, Executioner Smo, Aora, Winter, Lilith the Hammer Witch, Lamb Astasol, Validit, Nick Possum, Krista, Howling Nocturne, Ryasune21, Rakuna, Anthony, Manorock, and Ryan Rickard. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. I don't know how to end this.